because I'm going to be primarily talking to Mr. Pig. And we're going to cut the music too.
Hey.
Hello, good afternoon. How are you doing today?
Hey, good man. How about you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to get started here.
Hells yeah, me too, man. How's ladder been treating you the last few days? Are you on a up spike at the moment? Average? We getting our ass kicked? What's been happening in the realm of ladder?
I feel like I'm pretty 50-50. I thought Zerg was actually my best matchup, and then I had a little eye-opening experience here. I looked at my my percentages, and it's my lowest, which was funny. It was by far my highest last season. So when I was answering questions with you, I was like, oh yeah, TVZ, I'm fine right now. But yeah, I mean, it's felt
It's
pretty
funny,
even.
isn't it? It's like things change so quickly, but it's a small data set, right?
Hmm.
For this season so far as well. So it's not like it's wrong saying that's your best matchup in the bigger picture. Even though if in the right now picture, it's not. So hop in chat channel, Piggy. What's your in-game name? Is it Misery as well,
It is
or?
misery. I think I'm in
Oh,
at
I see you.
yeah.
I
There we
found
go.
you. Awesome. I can look at your stats as well. Nice. Awesome. So let's just look at those current season ones and see what we were looking at there. Okay, I mean it's not massively behind. They're all very close to 50%. So
Right.
that's good. Cool. There's no big lagger. So and if we untick current season, TVP was the lagger, but once again only by 5%. Obviously that's such a broad data set. It's not really the most useful, the non-current season one. I wish there was a last season and this season because that's
Yeah.
obviously more up to date.
Yeah, season by
But
season would be great. I think I was around 38% last season against Protoss, but it wasn't very great.
cool. Well, I guess we can start on that before TVT today as like a bit more of a focus.
Sure.
Um, I'm gonna make you a party leader, and I want you to just grab a recent TVP replay, preferably one that goes over 10 minutes. If you don't, if you can't remember a game that was close, that's fine. Doesn't matter. Just grab one that has the time. You've got the time that shows up next to the replays, right? You've got that
Yeah,
setting turned on.
I have one right now that I played 20 minutes ago or half an hour ago
All right.
ish.
Make me the lobby host once we get in there, and that way I can steer the replay. And I just want to kind of have this up while I actually talk to you about mechanics. We might end up getting a lot of juicy things out of this replay. I might just get the most surface level feeling for your play. Either way, it's some eye candy on screen for people who are watching the stream, but it also allows me to look at a few little things. Like, since I want to talk about mechanics, depot builders, I want to look at things like, how's the building placement? Is it consistent? Are we one of these players who blocks 80% of the production in our main with badly placed depots and engineering bays, and then ends up with our production kind of like having to be built out at our fifth base by the time we're on 3-4 bases and stuff? Like, just these little tiny details like that. Obviously at your level, you probably almost always queue workers back to mining. If a game starts getting messy, do you immediately forget to do that and start having idle workers everywhere, like I do when I'm sleepy? That's like if I'm a bit sleepy or a bit mentally off, the number of workers that just never get queued back to reasons, I'm like, what are you doing? Like this just creates so many redundant APM cycles. This is so stupid. Just looking for little details like that while we talk about the other stuff. So I guess getting onto that, great info. Thank you for the detailed write-ups. Like good detailed
Yeah.
builds, good mechanic answers. This just speeds up this initial process, so I can get a really good feel for how you're playing right from the get-go. So yeah, thanks for being thorough, man.
No worries. I mean, investing as much as I plan on investing into getting better at this game, not just financially and just the time that I play all the time.
It's the time.
I definitely wanna. I've hit this wall for I want to say years. It feels like I've never been higher than like mid masters going back to Wings of Liberty. So been stuck at this point for it seems like a long time. So I'd like to definitely get better and felt like this was
Cool.
maybe a really good avenue to do that.
Yeah, and I've been talking about this more and more recently, where I think more people should be comfortable being stuck. You know how everyone talks about being stuck. Like
Mm.
there's every platinum player, every gold player, every diamond player. Everyone else was, I'm stuck at X level in StarCraft, and I think for a lot of people, it's like they shouldn't think of it that way. They should be like, well, I'm like, okay, cool. Like what are you willing to give up to get to the next level? That's the question you should always ask yourself. And If it's not a lot, then be happy where you are. Enjoy the flow of ladder at the level which you understand it can compete at with the number of hours, the amount of mental energy you're putting into the game, right? Whereas for you, on the other hand, I've already just from reading your document, I'm like, oh, you want to put a lot in. I can already see you've answered this question. I want to get to that Masters 2, Masters 1. You seem very motivated. You watch a lot of the game. You seem very organized. So I feel like for you, you kind of have, I guess, a bit of an understanding of that whole, let's actually commit to trying to get to the next level right now.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I appreciate that. I like to think I'm a little organized, going to what I do for work, and then yeah, just trying to study the game as much as I can.
Awesome. What's your career, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm a corrections officer in Ontario, in Canada.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
It's interesting how people bring different things from their careers to how they learn StarCraft as well. Like, programmers are just amazing at learning weird, unintuitive hotkey setups.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if I've coached a corrections officer before, but I'm sure you'll from your own life experience, we all bring our own strengths and everything. So it's
Yeah.
always interesting to see everyone's own flavor of kind of these unique things which you just get better than other players do.
Yeah, I like to think I'm a little more organized, but I can always be better, that's for sure.
Awesome. All right, well, let's dive into the meat and potatoes. Don't want to spend too much time on small talk.
Hmm.
Obviously, the time is valuable. I've just
Right.
gone through and I realized it was actually you who sent me the screenshots of your settings. You were using mouse acceleration, and I'd emailed you back about that. What did you end
Yes.
up deciding? Did you try it, say this feels too weird, I'm going back to what I'm used to, or were you like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna commit to this? Which one did you decide on there?
I committed to the changes you suggested. So the mouse acceleration I took off. I didn't notice. I haven't noticed a huge difference yet. These games I played earlier today, I played 3 or 4 before we're getting started here, and yeah, I haven't noticed too big of a difference. I changed the other setting to 51 as well. The what was it? One of those
Right.
cores
Yeah,
that there was
the
a bug with.
in-game. Yeah. I can't even remember the details on that, but like, that's just something the hardcore people who know these things have always told me to do.
There we
I
go.
haven't looked into it for a long time. It's like, this is advice I got in 2011, 2010, and I've been telling people ever since, and I'm pretty sure it still applies. But yeah, no, that's good. As long as you're not noticing negative change, that's the more important thing. Changing a setting like that is not going to make you better at the game for a long time. And then when it does, it'll be like a 0.5% across all situations. So these are the ones which are actually really big if you think about it, because of the many different situations you can get into in a StarCraft match. If you can boost your performance 0.5%, in terms of just the mouse consistency, that's amazing. You're not going to notice it though, because we have human brains. We're not going to notice a 0.5% boost. And it's also going to take a while before that kicks in, because right now you're just getting used to the fact that the mouse operates a little bit differently to what you've experienced in the past. I'll die. Good. I
Yes.
was like, you greedy shithead. Like, you deserve to die for that oracle. Like, that's the point where you just tilt if that oracle doesn't die. Oh my
Yeah, I
god.
was a little worried that it might not.
Awesome. Okay, so mechanically, really happy with that. I think that's awesome. You said you're not using camera hotkeys that much, even though you set them up. This is such a common thing. Are they up on the F2, F1, F3, F4 keys, or?
I have them set, yeah, F1, 2, 3, and 4. And before I've been using one at each of my first 3 base locations, then one at where I have my rally set up. You mentioned to put one over
Mhm.
my production, so I think over this game I actually put one over my production. And I was trying to be
You know what I would
cautious.
advise? I would say use your rally point on the production. Because if you pull back to defend a cheese, it'll be there anyway, right?
Hmm.
When you pull to your high ground ramp. And once you've done all your production on 2 or 3 base, you're going to actually not need it anymore, because you've done 90% of your add-on swapping for the game,
Okay.
and then you can put it down at your rally point. That's what I do. So I think that would be a nice way to do it there. It just makes it a little bit smoother for swapping add-ons in the early game.
Okay. I think that's what I did for this game. I did also looked at what you emailed me with doing 20 minutes or so of just playing against the AI and trying to. I was trying to do one of your builds, the 3 racks where you start off with a lot of Marines, but then things got a little wonky. I thought I was being all in with like 4 gateways when I blocked his natural. So that's kind of what I was trying to execute this game, but I did 20 minutes of just kind of warm up in a custom game by myself, trying to work on hotkey locations, and then just making sure I'm not getting spot and things like that.
Awesome, and just making sure you have like the baseline of the build down, right? And that's always very important because if we don't have that, we can't possibly learn reactions. And so making sure you've got that baseline down first so that we can memorize reactions is so crucial because so many of us, our very first game learning a build, we just go on ladder and say, yeah, I'll learn it against an opponent. And then we're trying to learn how to respond against a 4-gate when we literally don't have any of the build automated. Like, so it just ends up being not good practice because it's like, well, what are we really adapting? We haven't even figured out the basics of the build. So you kind of end up just every time you encounter something you need to adjust to, you end up being like, oh, I'm doing different shit every game, and it just stops you getting any muscle memory. And that's really obviously awkward because even if you're playing well and you're doing good reactions, you never get that initial muscle memory down and things become a bit awkward. So continuing here on these mechanics, that's all good. We've got camera keys. We'd like to use them. What's your F2 button?
It was F5 or F6. I just disabled it before we got started here.
Okay, but it was on F5 or F6, and you were in the habit of pressing it a lot. And just when you saw my little note in the document, you mean you disabled it?
Yeah,
Or...
the note that said maybe temporarily disabled. So it's not that I even press F5 or F6. My problem is that I'll actually end up just clicking on it when I panic later on in games.
Oh no!
If I'm responding to, say, a drop in my base or some sort of harassment somewhere, I'll physically go and click on that button to grab everything and respond with it and try to, deal with it. And it's not ideal.
Yeah, especially clicking on that button is just kind of shitty. Like it's something which we just don't want to rely on it too much. So, I mean, the fact is, hopefully you're not relying on it too bad. Honestly, I was like, oh, maybe we can get rid of that since you said it's a problem. I'm not 100% sure how much I want to emphasize that just yet. But what I do want to emphasize is the tabbing for micro seems super awkward. I find tabbing to swap between unit types is just awkward because like it's inconsistent in terms of what order the units are in, right? Like, I know some people have said, I love tabbing. I think it's a great mechanic. I just want Blizzard to put in the ability so I can choose what order the units appear in, and I can set my own priority so it's always the same across every game, and that way I can, build more reliable muscle memory. Until that gets added in, I'm quite sure it's pretty random, especially once you get multiple spellcasters on it. I don't even know what the rules are for how it orders. Do you know what they are?
Yeah, it's got a certain order for Terran units, so I notice... it'll prioritize, say for an MMM Ghost army, I think it puts Ghosts first, and then it selects your Marines, then Marauders, and then if you have tanks or mines, it's like tank, and then Medevac, and then mine, with mine's like last, I think.
Is it based off the unit count you have of that unit, though, or is it actually the type of units are always in the same order?
I think it's the type of units always in the same order. I don't think it's based on how many, but I can't say for sure.
Yeah, no worries. If we have a Jamie in Twitch chat, can we get a fact check on that? Someone who's bothered and motivated, who's interested in this as much as me and Misery are. This is some interesting stuff which we should get down. Something I don't know a lot about because I don't do much tabbing at all. I do tabbing to select units when I'm hunting for them down there in my group and stuff, but never for in-battle micro. So if anyone can be bothered doing that, that's going to be great. Apparently there is a set order, EMC2 says. You can find it on Wikipedia. Okay, so it is a set order based on units, as you said. You are right. Okay. And I did, I was already tending towards what you said since you use this. So I'm like, I'm sure you know more about this mechanic than me as someone who actually uses it a lot. But just wanted to double check because I know there's been many things that are easily misinterpreted in a game as complicated as StarCraft, where we think something's operating a certain way and it seems that way, and always good to double check. So definitely not a vote of no confidence in you, but always want to be thorough. Okay. So yeah, obviously tabbing between those units, I mean, you can definitely get the order down and it can be okay. But yeah, it does mess with your muscle memory, right? You select your key, you go to stim, and you mess up that tab and it doesn't stim, and you're spreading non-stimmed bio because there's a single ghost in your army against banelings or storm. You're like, I really need stim to get out of there. I'm a big fan of simple unit compositions where you keep your unit control groups quite simple, where I put down the example in the document, right? You don't want to end up with like, I've got mines, libs, tanks, and ghosts, and stim bio all in the one army. It's just, you're not going to use all those units effectively, right? recently we've seen Maru use that sort of army actually pretty well in late game. We're not Maru, and even with him, he's like waiting all game, just sitting back behind planetaries until he like has the time to set up an engagement, because he knows he can't be out in the open ground with that army most of the time. And we saw here, okay, so this is exactly what you'd mentioned. You had one control group.
Yeah, I didn't set up the Liberators for a long time there.
Well, and you literally, like, you just can't control this on one control group properly. Like, everything would have to be completely manual. You should not be tabbing, right? So if you're going to control stuff sloppily, like with like no control groups, it's all got to be boxing, right? You cannot use control groups at all. So like it would have to be like just control click the libs, siege them, box the bio, do stuff with them. But yeah, I think in general, most situations you're going to have 3 key control groups as Terran, right? You're going to have main army, you're going to have siege units, which is, if you've got 1 siege tank, 6 liberators, obviously the liberators get the hotkey. The tank can just get thrown in with the bio and will manually micro it because it's low priority. A single tank doesn't matter in a big fight. 6 liberators do, right? So, like for me, Widow Mines are my, usually I play the standard TVP. Bio, mine, adding liberators and range lib later on, right? So there's a point in the mid game where you might have your first lib or 2 out. Widow Mines are still the priority. So I still keep my 6 to 8 mines on that hotkey. But as soon as I get up to like 4 liberators, I'm like, you know what? These start being more important. And I swap and my liberators go on the hotkey and my Widow Mines join my army. So I have my own rules for that, and you should do your own based on how important you think things are in the situation. So just kind of whatever works for you there. But I think those 2 hotkeys, and the third hotkey is always either a defense hotkey. Your opponent keeps hitting you with counterattacks. You go to squad there. More often than not, we're Terran, we're being aggressive. It's usually a drop or a run by or something like that, right? Occasionally ghosts if we've got to the very late game. And then, ideally we'll have more hotkeys available, but definitely just working on the main 2 army keys and then your drop hotkey is really, really key. So if we look at your hotkey layout, you've got these keys already allocated for this. It's just a matter of getting used to using them and making sure we know exactly what they're for. So would it normally be 1 main army, 2 backup units, 3 drop? I noticed your whole army's on number 2 in this scenario.
Yeah, I think I got kind of confused. Normally it'd be 1 with my whole army, 2 with my drops, and 3 with something else, either siege units or another drop if I was dropping 2 at a time.
Okay, so I guess we're going to write this down. Hotkeys. My cord's getting a bit tangled up. Here we go. All right, so what we're going to do is 1 main army, you said, 2 main siege units, or main special units, I should call them, and 3 drop. That was what you said, right? You happy with that?
Or did you 2 on my drops, but
2 is drop. No, we can do that. Yeah, I actually kind of like that sometimes as well. Back when I used this sort of hotkey layout, and so 3 can be your siege units. Okay. Yeah, I kind of like the 1-3 because there's a little bit of a gap between them. I don't know why. I remember always using those quite a bit back when I used standard hotkeys. Okay, and if you struggle with 2 control groups as well, you can be lazy and always just right-click the siege units on some of the units in your main army, and they can just follow along automatically, right? So if you forget to do the double control group setup, okay, that's cool. I think that should be good. That just trying to focus on that as a big thing. If you've already kind of removed the F2, it's not about just removing the F2 because you said you were already clicking. Yeah. So I think what's more important there is not just remove F2, but stop clicking it. Stop clicking it for 2 weeks kind of thing. Yeah. So F2 is a great hotkey, and all the best Terrans use it, and especially as a Terran player, because you can't warp in 12 Marines at a time and then hotkey them, or build 30 Zerglings and control group the eggs. Like, you can't do that as a Terran player, right? That being said, we are the aggressive race. We're the team that, with this drop in the north side of the map, the ability to send that in when we see their attack coming in and queue it into a mineral line while we queue a Liberator into another mineral line that we're waiting for it. These are like the game-winning moves as a Terran. How many times have we seen Terran players like look like they're doing really good, and then it's like they just keep barely like losing these engagements or not quite being able to break through, and the opponent has like Storm and Colossi, or they've got Brood Lords now, and it's like, oh shit, we're at this like much harder stage of the game. And I'm also always looking at these games, and I'm like, well, it's cool. This is like nice and all, but like, yeah, if there was a single Liberator queued up or a drop at any of these points during these fights or just before these fights, the other player would have fucked up these engagements 6 times as hard and we would be doing counter damage on their side of the map. And this could have gone from a close loss to like the easiest game of all time. And that's like a very common thing we encounter. So the ability to like leave units in position out on the map, dropping and positioning is absolutely huge. And I know I've been getting a free pass in my TVP early game lately, which is why my TVP is so comfortable right now. I'm killing Protoss pretty hard and having an easy time with it. But in the mid game, the big strength that I have as a player is my ability to just position around the map. And this is something when I play Future or one of these Terrans who's, you know, really bloody good, right? You know, Future almost took down Neeb in the last Challenger, and he's beaten Neeb in the past as well. Yeah, he's an insane. When I play these guys, like their ability to just be out on the map creating threat is huge. Because what you've got to understand with Protoss players specifically, and to some extent all races, is everybody's afraid of a Bio Terran, right? Because you can just get in there and do so much damage. And a lot of Protoss play revolves around them kind of having their observers just perving around your base. They go, cool, you're going to go for a 3-tank push at 8 minutes. And like, you know, you basically have this gigantic strong push. It gets together, you push in, you go, awesome, this is working, right? I think this will work. You get in there and they just swamp you with zealots and you're like, wow, this seems fair. Watch the replay and you're like, huh. His 10 gateways finished like 20 seconds before I hit. His charge just kicked in with his 1-1. 6 seconds before the push hit, and he just got one big round of Zealot warp-ins in. And if that was like 20 seconds delayed, if those gateways were just slightly off time, I get position and he dies, rather than him jumping on my unsiege tanks. You're like, huh. You start to realize how fine a razor's edge the Protoss player's defense often, you know, ends up on, until they get to that 4-base stage where they've just got batteries and cannons and storm everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So anytime you can create threat without just throwing your units away, it's very good. It's the same thing as Zerg player as well to a certain extent. Anytime a Terran's on their doorstep, they're like, God damn. Because a Zerg player and Protoss player, they want you to come out with a push which they see well ahead of time. They get the right number of units. They crush that push. It's one tight, contained engage. And then they go back to being a greedy fucker. And that's exactly how all Zergs and Protoss play against Terran. So the ability to do more non-committal pressure, more light harassment without, you know, absolutely YOLOing, it's just like the absolute game winner for us as a Terran player. So that's where getting rid of the F2 and just being a little bit more comfortable with our control groups and more organized with that F2 habit is actually huge. So I think this is going to be very useful. At the same time, it's going to be very hard to get used to with organizing our units and making sure we're not, you know, handicapped, because there's going to be a lot of scenarios where our instinct is to just click that F2 button and go with it. So I think we're going to have to be very patient is what I'm getting at. You're going to lose more games at first because there's going to be high pressure situations where your instincts go click the button above the minimap, and you're not going to be focusing on winning. You're going to be focusing on not clicking that button and doing the correct thing, organizing your army and having a sort of structure there and trying to make that structure natural to yourself, because that's what's going to benefit you in the long run in building this new skill set, right?
Right.
Whereas if you cave and you go, no, I want to win this game, and you click that button and you use the mechanic that you're reliant upon in the past, you're actually going to go backwards, right? So this is a real investment in losing games and getting used to this new muscle memory, but it will take a little bit of practice and it will be a little bit awkward at first. So I'm just kind of giving you this warning that we actually want you to reframe the goalposts in your mind. It's not about the victory screen. It's about, are you building the habit that you want to be building? So if you lose a game, a lot of people in that situation, they get frustrated. They say, if I just used the mechanic I was good at, I would have won this game, and I would have friggin' won. They get angry. And that's why it's so important, because as soon as you get in that mindset, you're not learning. Because you're going to get so frustrated at doing the right thing when you should be happy that you did the right thing. You should be really happy about the fact that you had that discipline. So you've got to try and focus on that. Okay, it's about building the new habit under pressure. It's about making that natural to myself as a player. And if you can focus on that, you're in the right mindset and you're working on these new skills. If you find it's impossible to do that, you're like, nope, I can't do it. Stop learning the new mechanic right now, and we can just focus on strategy. So that's the warning. I think, you know, we haven't coached together a lot yet. I think after this message, and I think after what you've said about, you know, the work you're putting in, I think you'll be able to do that just fine. But I want you to be very aware of that. If you don't have the patience for it, there's no point trying to learn new mechanics, because all you're doing is wasting your time. And this is just a warning which we all need to remind ourselves of. Learning new mechanics, it's like learning to play soccer, and suddenly we've been kicking with our right leg for 20 years playing soccer, and now we have to kick with our left leg. It's going to feel really stupid and wrong at first, and you can't focus on trying to win, because if you go and play with your friends, they're going to kick your ass, okay? The guys you play on ladder can kick your ass for the first 20, 50 games, but if we can focus on just learning to kick with our left leg, then you're going to feel really good.
Yeah, I agree with almost everything you said, and I've applied that in real life scenarios already. So one example was just relearning to handcuff when I got into corrections. When I was looking at policing, they teach you how to handcuff a certain way, and then when I went into my corrections training, it's completely opposite. You're holding the handcuffs in a different hand. You have them reversed, so it felt really awkward at first. But you gotta, for ministry standards, you have to do it that way. So I understand what you're saying on just working on that mechanic and just getting that down and doing it the right way, not the easy way or the way that I already was doing things before.
Hells yeah. Awesome. I think that's great. Whenever we can, yeah, because I mean, that's learning in general, right? You can always, there's always this like the most flexible skill set that applies to everything. So anytime we can apply that from anything else we've learned, it really does apply very well. Avert your eyes, Terran, people watching the stream. This is about to be a massacre. There's no way mathematically we could win this fight. I don't care how godlike your micro is, that's not possible. If we had like 14 libs, maybe. and we're maxed, but that Protoss had more supply than us. Actually, we're doing about as good as we possibly could with this fight, but the point of this was not to look at that, it was to look at the mechanical habits, right? We can go back and look at the strategy and start talking about TVP now, because I think we've covered all the stuff, and I've got a good feel for how you're playing. You did do a few drops, you did do a little bit, not a crazy amount, and we can go back and break that down, but mechanically, you're working on breaking the F2 habit, and we want to go back and we want to be really smart and have rules for when it's a good time to use F2, which we'll start focusing on a few weeks from now, once you've gotten rid of it as a compulsion, right? Once we get rid of that, we can talk about, oh yeah, okay, this is the best time to use it. We really want to use it for this, really want to use it for that. Hotkeys, main army 1, drops 2, siege units 3, grinding that out is going to be great. We already talked about like camera location above your production, should be nice. Trying to get used to your camera locations is always a good thing, but especially for like defending pressure. But I'm not going to press that too much. I don't think it's like the highest priority right now, and you only have so much bandwidth. You can only really learn one or two new things at a time.
Right.
It's more about prioritizing and being nice and focused. So yeah, let's talk TVP. Let's go back to the start of this game and let's look at your build order while we do it. You've done a nice write-up of your build order. It's a gas first Reaper FE. What's your opening pressure? Do you do a mine drop or Hellion run by? What do we?
So normally I do Hellion, so Hellion drop or a mine drop. This actually wasn't the build order I sent you. This was actually from your spawning pool page, I think. It was the TVP 3 racks macro opening, TVP economic.
Oh, right. You started learning that one, didn't you?
Yeah, I wanted to try that out. That's what I was working on in the custom game before I queued up for ladder today, and then this was the first ladder game I got. So seeing as I was practicing that in the custom game, that's why I decided to do it this game. And then again, I kind of deviated from it because I delayed the natural a little bit, and I thought I saw 4 gateways building, so I threw up some bunkers, and it kind of delayed some other things. So that was what I was kind of going for.
It's a good specific example then, I guess. So we can start talking about reactions and this game just in terms of that, right? And how well did we tailor our response and what could we have done better here? So let's quickly. So how many games did you do? I mean, I guess we should also talk about the build, because if you want to stick with this build, we can talk a lot about this build specifically. But it's how do you want to play the matchup? Do we want to get good at this 3 racks build? Do we want to keep working on your gas first build and just refine that? It comes down to I want you to have one solid build that's like your most favorite right now that we're doing the most practice on. But it's based on what you think is the most enjoyable for you.
Okay, I think I would actually really rather enjoy this. I like the idea of the mine drop where we're doing like a Hellion drop or something at the same time. And then, but I find I die a lot to any sort of blink stalker aggression when I'm doing those types of builds, or any sort of proxy gateway shenanigans. I feel like I struggle a lot with those when I do the gas first opening.
Yeah, it is definitely tough with gas first. I find 3 racks gives you just a lot of material to work with. So definitely against the early aggression, it's good. I mean, that being said, I don't think blink stalkers should be too much of a problem once you get your response your standard response behind your opening pressure down against blink, which is basically getting out your tank, having the bunker at the front, and then there's like a window where there's a bunch of things you need to do correctly in order to respond. But that's cool. We can focus on the 3 racks. Okay, so we can focus on the 3 racks build order. So let's go back in this game and let's take a look here. So nice and early on, we end up going for this. Let's take a look through and all right. So depot, barracks, gas. We are going to send an SCV scout. So you've opted for an SCV scout. This build gives you a bit more safety and flexibility. Does slow down your extra barracks. Something I often skip with this build because I'm a greedy piece of shit. But yeah, it's basically me reacting to. I'm pretty derogatory towards GM Protoss players on the NA ladder because I feel like they're so sloppy with how they play for the most part, and they're very gimmicky. So I often feel like not scouting what they're doing helps me more because their builds don't make a lot of sense a lot of the time. But it's more just I like having the extra 70 minerals. So like having an extra marine early, then having an extra, getting this 3rd barrack slightly earlier, having this upgrade line. And I find that like because people aren't executing their pressure, I know if they executed their pressures better, it would be really, really, really damn impossible for me to hold with not scouting a lot of these things. But because I'm like, they're not executing it that tight, I find just having an extra marine out a bit earlier, having an extra barracks done slightly earlier, the extra minerals actually ends up making it, as long as I react tight, I can hold. But that is undoubtedly me being greedy. So that's something to keep in mind there. Now, this engineering bay block is really, I think, where things go off the rails for you. So this is one of these kind of instinctive moves. You're like, oh, he doesn't have the Nexus down. Let's go for it. I'm pretty sure you just made this up on the fly, right?
That's, exactly what I did.
So, first of all, freeze frame. This point, what do you think about your opponent's build at this point?
At this
From
point,
what you've scouted,
like
what are you
he's
thinking?
Being aggressive, or that there could be something on the map because I've seen one pylon and a cyber core. So I'm thinking there's either a pylon somewhere on my side of the map, or that there's something going on somewhere because there's no Nexus yet. Usually it's Nexus, then Cyber, I'm pretty sure.
Absolutely. Now, sometimes they go Cyber Core first, but there's a key thing. He's got a second gas down already as well, right? Now, yeah, he dropped that when your SCV was in there, so it was kind of like maybe he was worried about you blocking. But either way, you can also see the gateways building, right?
Yeah.
You could already see that when you came in. So it's like, well, this guy's going for a Zealot. Probably a Zealot Stalker or a Zealot Adept Pressure, right? He wants to pressure your command center, try and slow it down in the low ground. Now, on this map, that's not the case. Why? The Zealots could take 45 minutes to get here. This map just takes forever to get across the map. Now, that being said, he could bring a probe and mine out these 2 mineral patches if he brings 2 probes and clear the middle path. And then he can actually do that pressure to you. So, okay, cool. Either way, is he trying to expand right now? Not at all. Now, so this is a common mistake. You said, well, his expansion's late. Let's make it later. But it's like, well, you're already expanding on the low ground against an aggressive opening. He's already building units, which happen to counter an engineering bay block, right? So you're going for a really late engineering bay block here, where it's not really going to get a lot of time to get hit points. There's already a probe there. This is like an opportunistic, I'm going to do something. And if this tilts your opponent, it often works in the game and you get rewarded for it. But it's based off them panicking more than it is the logic of this move, right? And these are moves which we often get excited and love to do. And I love to free flow with these moves when that's the goal of my ladder play. If I'm playing on my Star-Lord account where it's like, let's do crazy builds and fuck with my opponent, I will always take this opportunity because it's fun, it's intuitive, and it's exciting. But usually it's bad move if your opponent stays calm under pressure like Dragon Reborn did here. So yeah, there's multiple reasons. So I think that the best logic for us to think about here is you're expanding nice and fast. He's delaying his expand. Therefore, you're ahead economically. You just need to be safe. Part of you being safe is getting your second barracks down in time, your third barracks down in time. That's also part of how you leverage this faster economy into doing a nice hard hitting attack to get him. So that's the main reason why I wouldn't go for the eBay. The second reason is we're making it up on the fly and it's not a pre-planned branch. If we want to think about it more and say, wait, is it worth eBay blocking with this build? Then we can think about it and we can map that out. And we want to actually sit down, watching a replay of it, try it a few times, and we want to write down when we think it works, why it worked well in those games, and what we kind of want to look for. For me, I say if there's no Zealot starting on this gateway, I might be okay with you doing it. But because we see there's a Zealot already in production, this ends up kind of just silly, right? You've already taken like 20 hit points of damage when you go for it on your SCV.
Yeah.
and you get like almost no build time. And then I'm pretty sure we forgot to cancel it because I had so few hit points.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually looked at it and almost got it. I was very close to selecting it, but yeah, you're right. It was a spur of the moment decision that I got excited about, and it was exactly like you said. Like my eyes lit up. I was like, "Oh yeah, I can block it," and then I did it in a poor way. Like I shouldn't have done it because, like I said, he's building a unit to get rid of it. My CC is almost halfway done already, and I just need to be getting the other two barracks placed. So the barracks, so I need to
Yeah.
go another barracks.
Exactly, right? So it's just going to throw off your build a bit. And for him, he's like, oh, cool, man. Like, he could easily just put the Nexus down. Him putting down these gateways was bizarre. And did they actually block the Nexus, by the way? Or did he squeeze that in? Because it looks like they should block it.
So I think he saw my bunkers and then canceled some of those gateways. Yeah.
Right. Okay, cool. So anyway, so yeah, basically that sort of move there. So eBay block. Don't do moves like that intuitively, right? Usually, unless you're doing a few fuck around games on unranked or something like that, or it's really like you're doing an explorative ladder session, and even if you're doing that, then you want to do it multiple times so you can actually start to really understand that thing, right? Like Haas, when he has a new dirty build, he does it like a billion times on the ladder, over and over and over again, until he's like mapped out every weird branch of it and he understands it all. So let's look at these two bunkers, because that was definitely not the right move. And the reason it wasn't was timing. It was not to do with bunkers are bad against a one base 4-gate. Of course, bunkers are amazing against a one base 4-gate, but let's take a look at this. So third barracks is already delayed. So already it's like, production's going to be a little bit worse than we would like. But we've got a Reaper there. So we built the bunker, even though going for an eBay block kept the Zealot at home. I guess just to be safe against the follow-up kind of, okay, yeah, fair enough. I'm going to say I'm okay with that first bunker, even though, preferably delay it if we could. Now, our Reaper's going to come in, and we do micro this Reaper a bit interestingly. Personally, coming in, seeing there's only a Zealot, I would, and 3 gateways, I would immediately dive into that main base, get away from the Zealot, and start trying to do more damage, but also just try and free up my APM so I can get my third barracks down at home. Oh, a second depot we've forgotten this entire time, which is a disaster. So yeah, that's why that bunker definitely shouldn't be down, right? The engineering bay is thrown off our build. There's no way we should ever be building that bunker before going for depots and stuff, because the only threat right now is like an adept or a stalker coming across the map and a zealot, right? Things which reactor marine production should be able to deal with. As it is, you're going to have a bunker up really early and no marines to go in it because you're supply blocked until that command center finishes. So this is just like, as a general rule, we can say to ourselves, I should only ever start a bunker at earliest after my depot begins. And that can be a good rule for you to just always apply with any early defense. I personally would say 3 racks is also a good idea, because you don't really need bunkers up if you're building marines out of multiple barracks really early and pumping nonstop from that reactor on a big map, unless there's a gateway proxied at like right next to your base, or until warp gate finishes, right? You see a 4-gate even, it's like, well, okay, we're going to be worried for like 3 minutes 55 about then when 4 stalkers could warp in outside our base. That's when we need bunkers ready. But that's a minute from now when we start those bunkers. That's a while away, right? We want to make sure we've just got our production up first and foremost. And I think that would have been the key. Now, with your Reaper here, you're going to pull back, and we would love to leave that on our opponent's side of the map. So whenever you're pulling back a Reaper, especially against a one base all-in, you always go and hide that on their side of the map, just on an edge somewhere where they're not going to find it.
Okay.
If it died there, I would immediately send an SCV across the map. You need to see if your opponent is continuing to commit to the aggression or not. So even if I just hide an SCV like up here, and then like I'm in the middle of defending, and then at some point I go, I need to see if he's expanded, grab that, send it in. And if you'd kept the Reaper on his side of the map, you'd be like, okay, bunker, do this, yada yada. And then you'd send the Reaper in right now, and you'd be like, oh, he canceled the gateways and built an expansion. Cool. And that would have been massive. Yeah. Likewise, because his build was really fucked up, he did what we call a Protoss move. This is my opening. This is what I do with Protoss. He just didn't build the Stalker. The Stalker popped out at like 3 minutes. So if we microed our Reaper really well and went straight in the main, we probably could have killed like 4 probes, especially if it was a smaller map. So we just took a long time to send this Reaper back out, and our marine production is very low. Like, we've got 2 bunkers, but we've got nothing in them that shoots. So he could literally just shade a depth past or walk right past your bunkers and sit next to your natural. And likewise, we have very few Marines, which is why this ridiculously late Oracle is kind of able to do some damage as well. Like his Oracle is probably the latest Oracle I've ever seen in my life. And we should have like 20 Marines with Stim by that point, by the time it hits. But then we've still got 2 bunkers and everything focused on the natural. We haven't cleared this gas in the main base, which even tells him we've got no defense there. He's like, oh, cool, there's nothing here. And he starts getting some damage. So I think this game is one of these ones where we say it's in build order you don't have a lot of experience with, and you've done a weird intuitive move, which wasn't quite mathematically worked out. And then we basically kind of overreacted with the bunkers earlier than we needed to. That's part of the previous 2 factors. Build was thrown off and we're not experienced with the build. And we end up in a really awkward position. So this whole early game was just a bit of a mess. And I think you could feel the early game was a mess. You said, oh, this game went a bit weird and off the rails. I think that's pretty much exactly what you said when we opened this replay, because he did this 4-gate and then he canceled it. It was a bit weird. These sort of games you really want to hone in on, and you want to say, what is my exact response to this? What is my exact response to this? Was this a good move at the start with the engineering bay? Why did I forget my second depot? How can I make sure that doesn't happen in future? And we can just break down that early game and make sure this goes into a much better position, because his build order was so bad that this game is still not bad for us. But it's so hard for us to have game sense. Like right now, if I am in your shoes in this game, I'm like, I have no idea where I am in this game compared to my opponent. I know it's probably not too bad, but I don't know what he's committing to. This sort of game where you end up just turtled in on these bunkers for so long, he could be going triple Robo Disruptor, triple Robo Colossus. Like, we have no clue what is happening in this game, and that's what happens when it goes so off the rails. So anytime you feel yourself losing control, if you get to the end of a game, I really don't know what's happening, it's so important in these games to go back and find the first point where you felt you lost momentum or understanding of what was going on or some control, and go, okay, how could I have responded to that with a tight, decisive set play, and then gone out with a counter pressure to get back in my normal mode? Because the whole point of this build, even if you react to an early pressure, is you still want to go hit your stim timing, right? Whenever you branch off the main trunk of your build, you want to very quickly get back to the main trunk of your build, right? And hit the exact same game plan, preferably. Because that's the thing you know. And with this build, when you're learning it, you always want to headbutt with your stim timing for your first 30 games learning this build, and often even beyond that. I still, whenever I start doing this build and I haven't done it in a while, like I say, I'm going to headbutt with this stim timing no matter what. Unless I literally see 2 Colossus and a bunch of sentries standing up a ramp, I'm gonna always stim in and just commit to the timing as hard as I can, because that gives me a real tight, decisive pressure. Not only does it often win games, it's a skill check for your opponents, but it just gives me something to work towards, and it takes the decision-making out of it, because I know what's important is me getting the muscle memory down and me committing to everything to lead up to that point and hitting that timing. And if I just get massacred and lose the game there, cool, I can GG, or I can GG shortly thereafter, and I can look at the replay and I can say, okay, why was my timing 20 seconds late? Number 1. Number 2, why did I forget combat shields? That was massive. Or I was on timing, but you know what? This is just the rare case where committing in the natural was a dumb idea. I should have just killed the 3rd Nexus and then gone back rather than going up a ramp and getting my army force fielded. But it gives you a really, really basic thing to look at in the game for the win condition, rather than losing 21 minutes and 55 seconds later in this kind of continual landslide of just weirdness that was this particular game. So it gives us a much clearer kind of set of conditions to work on. So yeah, I really like that idea of keep your game plan as simple as possible when you're new to it, so that it's very easy to draw conclusions. So I see you going range libs. Is that your normal go-to in the late game? Is this a new thing after kind of looking at the way I talk about range libs in this matchup? Have you always been a bit range lib focused?
It's kind of a new thing for me. I've been trying to do it more against Zerg, and then after reading the write-up on this particular build, that three racks opening, I think it's around 9 or 10 minutes that you point out to get range liberators. So that's, I think, I was trying to get that research done around the same time. 939 advanced ballistics and reactor on factory. So I think I was just trying to remember to get that once I've got the 3 base economy and can afford it. I think that's...
Yeah. It's a big leveraging point. Something to be wary of in those spawning tool builds is obviously the actual timings are very specific to the exact games, but it's more about the order. So the important thing for you to decide is if you want to work on your range lib play, I want you to choose to always either commit to, okay, I am going to go 5 barracks, then range lib, or you can even do it the way which I sometimes do it, which is literally getting your gases on your third the moment you land it and going straight for a second starport and a fusion core off just the 3 barracks. The important thing always isn't the game timer. It's about the order. So you can always have the same order no matter what chaos the game is being thrown into. It's like, okay, I'm on 3 barracks production. Let's add my 4th and 5th barracks, gases on the 3rd, then go up to it. Or you know what? I'm doing the rush to range libs like PiG does sometimes. I'm going to go straight to the range libs off 3 racks. Which one do you prefer? Do you prefer more of the lots of bio or rushing the range libs out?
I think I prefer the more bio. In
Okay.
Terran versus Protoss, I think I prefer microing the bio compared to the range libs just because I'm not really comfortable with them yet.
Cool. I think it's okay to do that, and this is still pretty well timed if you've got your good macro going and stuff. It's not that big a timing difference. So I think that's a totally fine way of doing it. In my write-up, did I mention the different attack timings? How like the first 2 liberators that come out after a few medevacs can be really powerful with your bio and a few mines?
Let me take a look right now.
Well, if you haven't read it, it doesn't matter. So I can go over it.
Yeah.
It's just I don't want to repeat stuff you've read already. Basically, it's like you've got your first stim timing with this build, which will hit at about anywhere between 5 minutes and 6 minutes, depending on how beefy you want that timing to be and how sudden. Obviously, if you hit right on 5 minutes, like the moment stim finishes, you might only have 16 Marines, but it's like, obviously, it's like, wow, this is very fast timing. You've still got +1 combat shields and stim. Or I often hit like 535, 540, and I've got 2 Marauders in there, which I love to put in front of the Marines to kind of tank a little bit, especially if they have a Colossus out. I really like that timing. It just works for me. These things are fluid. Sometimes the meta shifts, and I prefer to go for the faster timing because I feel like people are being greedier. Either way, you've got your initial stim timing. That's phase 1. You always want to have every build order as a Terran, especially you want to have pre-built timings where you like to fight with your opponent. Strong points where everything comes together. Because your army is so fragile, but it's all ranged high damage units,
Right.
there's always these natural points you want to be mentally aware of before the game starts, because otherwise we get lost in the mechanics of all the hard shit that is building supply depots and microing our stuff as a Terran player. It's easy to forget. You want to have a lot of your timings pre-planned as a Terran. So phase 2 is with 2 to 4 medevacs and your first 2 liberators. As soon as you get 2 liberators, even without range added in, it adds this real range siege firepower to your army. And not just that, you've also got mines at that point. So you'd have, 6 Widow mines, especially against mass charge lots. Widow mines are insanely important. You need to be like non-stop mine production. If they're going one of these mass charge lot stalker armies, Widow mines are how you defeat that. If they're going Colossus, Widow mines not nearly as important because they're very good against that, especially if it's more of a Colossus kind of stalker build-up. If they're going Mass Zealot Colossus, still Widow mines are very important because those Zealots do jump on top. So second timing, first 2 Liberators joining up, a pack of mines. You've got all that bio you've been building all game long. You go siege that up on a 3rd base of a Protoss. You should be hitting them before they get multiple Colossus with Colossus range, or before they have Psystorm. You're basically hitting them before they hit the real power points. They might have Charge and Stalkers, but you've got this army that's made for killing Charge and Stalkers. So that's your secondary timing, and then the final timing is obviously just any attack with a whole bunch of range libs, and that's something where often you're still always dropping throughout the later stages of the game, hitting on one side of the map. Not usually dropping so much as unloading, like on this map. Say we'd taken down these minerals on the north side. If you go to everyone's camera, say we wanted to push our main army through from there, we would always unload a double drop down here in the bottom left. That would be our distraction squad, sometimes even a triple drop, and we would like stim that in from this angle, scanning ahead of it just to pull his army out of position. And the whole goal would be see his army coming, run it back to the bottom left corner of the map, and that allows you to move across the map with your libs. But if they're in between your libs and their base, you can't really move your libs forward very well, or they get picked off. So it's always about trying to kind of, sneak in a position where you say, all right, everything's sieged, the bio can pre-spread, you have to come fight into me to save your base. And that's where you can actually take good fights against Protoss with Liberators. If you're trying to push through the middle open ground through their army, you're going to have a real bad time where this sort of thing happens all the time, where your units get separated and your Liberators get picked off. Obviously, in this case, you just didn't have the army to match his, so this is a special case, but just kind of a good example. So you want to be kind of very clear there on those 3 attack timings. I'm going to write those down. Initial stim timing, 5 minutes. And then you've got. Do you want to grab another replay of this build order? You said you've been practicing it for a couple days, right?
Just today, actually. That's the only build, or that's the only Protoss game I had where I did that build order.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
Do we
played
have any
3
Protoss
games
players in?
before hooking up with you here.
No worries. EMC2, do you want to play with us a game quickly? You able to help us out, brother? I think you should be a good level to play against the Masters 3. I think EMC2 is like Diamond 1, so or Raven Flames. Yeah, if one of you guys could hop in chat channel Piggy, that'd be great. Oh, Rain's here. EMC2 is as well. All right, I'm going to suggest both of them to party. We'll see who's good. Invite them to party and host up a map of your choice, and we'll play a game quickly just to kind of get a little bit more practice with this, and we can refine it while I continue to just write lots of theory notes for you. Initial stim timing 5 minutes, and then we can say a roughly 8-minute timing. Obviously varies hugely. First 2 liberators, 2 to 4 medevacs, and 6 to and 6+ mines. I should say 4+ mines, I guess. Yeah. And then gigantic range lib plus bio spread engagements, which can be huge as well. Awesome. Yeah, if they can catch you unsieged, bio range lib seems like a pretty shitty army. That's why the more aggressive your opponent is, the more you adopt a very defensive setup whilst counter-attacking with lots of doom drops. You're just kind of hitting from one side, hitting from the other, hitting from one side, hitting from the other with these backstabs while you're like, attack into my range libs, bitch. If you want to be sitting right outside my base all game, I'm going to be sending triple drops in. I'm going to be queuing range liberators into your mineral lines. And you either headbutt into my range libs, because, they're constantly just veering for position. They try to find an angle where they got a flank or you're not sieged up and you're trying to re-siege while they get in on top of you. So there's like a real dance there where if the Protoss tries to do that too much, you do a lot of backstabbing and run-bys and drops and stuff. While just setting up an unbreakable position at your front base. And if they pull back too much to defend all those drops, that's where you can go across the map and do those beautiful big siege ups. For this game, we don't need to focus too much on those tactics. What we're going to be focusing on is number 1, build orders, and number 2, control groups. Once we get to adding a bunch of mines in, they're going to be that control group number 3. Right? Once we get up to 4+ liberators with our army, they're going to steal that siege unit control group. And we're going to try and use those units together as well as we can. Are we going to do it well? No, you're going to fuck it up. As long as you focus on not doing the F2 habit of clicking above the mini-map. Focus on that. That's going to be great. Focus on that and focus on your build order being nice and tight here. So just try not to do any intuitive eBay blocks. Just get the build order down. I will whisper in your ear once in a while here or there. And, I'll try not to whisper too much because it is distracting having someone kind of disrupt your internal ordering of what's most important in a game.
Right.
But yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
All right. Get in your groove through X. We will commit to the 5 barracks timing attack. The 5-minute roughly stim timing attack is the first one, and we'll go from there. So good luck, have fun, man.
Thank you.
Good luck and have fun. You're gonna need it. Minerals now. Get them.
In the rear. SCV ready.
Not enough minerals. Minerals now. Get them.
In the rear with the gear. Huh? Bad news.
More shoebox depot. Not enough minerals. Minerals now. Get them.
Big job. SCV ready. Woohoo! Over. SCV ready.
Just meant to be talking to the obs there, but good build order so far. Keep it up.
In the rear with the gear. SCV ready. In the rear. What's going on? Move it. Bad news. SCV ready. It's your dime. What's going on? In the rear. Ah! You scared me. Big job, huh? Going. Bad
Not
news?
enough minerals.
Huh?
That'd be a solid no on this one, Captain. Your command center upgrade is complete.
Ah! You scared me. The Grim Reaper has arrived. Go ahead, SCV.
Minerals, now! Get them! Not enough minerals.
Got something for me to kill? What's going? Huh? We hear you.
Minerals, now! Get them!
SCV ready. Fear them. What? Where? Big job, huh? SCV ready. Death from above. Fair enough. Huh, that's all?
We finished that add-on. Nice.
All right. SCV ready. What's it worth? SCV ready.
Hey! They're attacking our base!
In the rear
Add-on
with the gear.
complete.
Roger that. SCV ready. Yes, indeed. Go ahead.
Unacceptable build location.
You want a piece of me, boy? Armed and ready. SCV ready. Sure. Okay.
Command center
Waiting
got
on you.
better.
Big job.
We finished that. Nice.
What's going on? Got this better be good.
You're gonna need a tad bit more energy.
SCV ready. Go, go, go! Huh? Ah! You gonna give me orders? SCV ready. Roger. In
That'd
the
be
rear
a
with
solid
the
no
gear.
on this one, Captain.
Armed and ready.
Not enough energy.
You gonna armed and ready. You want a piece of me?
No.
SCV ready.
Minerals, now! Get them! Not enough minerals.
We could use some help here. Who wants some? SCV ready. Gangway coming through. Go, go, go! Huh?
Insufficient vessel.
SCV ready. This better be good. What's going on? SCV ready. Aye, aye, sir. Armed and ready. This better be good.
Not enough energy.
You by the
SCV
numbers,
ready.
boys.
Research complete. You're gonna need a tad. Additional supply depots are required. Base is under attack. Finished learning.
SCV ready. Want a piece of me, boy? Who wants some?
Add-on complete.
Why not? SCV ready.
Not enough energy.
Go ahead.
Minerals, now! Get them!
Been waiting on you. Oh, it's on. SCV ready. What's going on? This better be good. Armed and ready. By the numbers, boys.
We finished that add-on. Nice.
I'm on. Ready. Roger that. Affirmative. Why not?
Research complete.
Ready for duck talk.
Add-on complete. complete.
Can't wait.
You can't upgrade complete.
Gangway coming through. What's going on?
You're gonna need a tad bit more.
SCV ready. Go ahead.
Not enough minerals. Minerals now! Get them!
By the numbers, boys. 10-4. You want it. Ready. This better be good.
Not enough minerals. Minerals now!
Ready for dust off.
Not enough energy.
SCV ready. Been waiting on you.
Minerals now! Get them! Not enough minerals.
What's
Your
going
command
on?
center upgrade is complete.
Gangway coming through.
Minerals now! Get them!
All right, you're doing real good. Keep building lots of bio, and with these 2 liberators, we're going to do that next timing attack. We did see some units at our 3rd. Let's try and deal with that. It's all right. Just fly the command center back. You can repair it. You'll be fine. You would love to fight now, so just keep massing bio, and this is going to be a terrible engagement because this is your strong point. Oh, you got to repair that command center. Keep repairing it. All right. Get ready. Remember, Widow Mines need to be on control group 3. The rest of the army on 1, and go do a frontal push and try to kill him.
Not enough minerals.
I would actually push towards the natural because we really want to commit hard to this. So just go really decisively. Kick some ass.
We could use some help here.
Come on, focus on your army. Him fighting you here, really bad for him. Push the natural, be real decisive. Don't get distracted, don't chase his army. He's got to come fight you. Just, yeah, queue up more units on your production, focus on your army, kick some ass. Remember, this is that strong point I was talking about. Yeah, mines, libs, amazing army, kick some ass.
Dust off.
Mineral field depleted. The minerals have up and gone.
All hands to battle stations.
Can't wait.
Mineral field depleted.
Sparky. We could use some help
The
here.
upgrade is done.
Ready for dust.
Want a piece of me, boy? You Gangway coming through. Armed and ready. SCV ready. Go. Want a piece of me, boy?
Let's work our way towards the production in the main. Start depowering all the gateways. That'll be the game winner.
And they're out of
Yeah.
here.
Whew, the power of some nice decisive timing attack, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That felt like I'm going to take a guess. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. This is what we call pig quiz hour, where he tries to read how it felt playing that game. Did it feel like you were on a circus stage and you were just poo? You were throwing poo. People were throwing poo at you. Yet somehow you won $1 million at the end of it.
Yeah, a little
Am I
bit.
correct? It was a bit of a shit show of a game, wasn't it?
That was yeah, a pretty satisfying game actually. It was very satisfying.
Those are the best to win, man. Where you're like, oh my god, this doesn't feel good. Wait, I'm winning. This is awesome. That was scary, but awesome. Yeah. So lots of things we can improve there. But I think what we learned from that was the power of the bio units committing at timings which we know are strong. I have stem, I have shields, I have a few medevacs. Here's 2 liberators, and I've got some mines. This is a naturally strong timing. Let's go do stuff with this army. If you gave him another 30 seconds to a minute, he would have built like 10 more gateways and just made 1 billion zealots and killed you. He had so much money. He was so far ahead, but he was a little slow in his gateway count. And he should never have attacked you. The attack made no sense. EMC2 unfortunately kind of threw the game there a little bit. So unfortunately for him, fortunate for us. But, you know, I was like, all right, we're going to move across and commit really hard at this time. Because remember, what was the exercise? Commit to your stim timing, right? And not just that, what did I do there? I piped in and I was like, commit to your second timing with the liberators and the mines and go hard. And you floated 2k minerals during it. That's good. I would
Okay.
rather you focus on that timing and you leverage that and you got used to, okay, this is a strong point. And with experience, you'll get better at spending your money behind it, right? But you're keeping the game focused around these early power points, these early strong points of your game plan. Initial stim timing, that second timing. For the first week or so of this build, I want you to. Most of your games should be decided by this build, these two timings. You shouldn't be going to range libs very much. That should not be something you're experiencing, because you've got so much to fix in your opening with all your little adjustments and reactions, and you will. That's StarCraft in general. Going to range libs is a bit superfluous. We want to keep our focus really hard on the early game, first 4 minutes, the first 5 minutes, the first 6 minutes, and we want our games to win or lose here. So I love that you committed to that. There was a lot that had gone wrong, but because you were decisively committing to it, you won the game nonetheless. And that's something which it just helps us learn, because now we can go back and say, yeah, I won, but there's still 1,000 things to learn from that replay. But it's in a contained game. Remember, 10-minute game, not a 22-minute game.
Right.
Much easier to learn from. So well played, man. GG's.
Thank you. I appreciate the time taking out of your day here with me.
No worries, man. A few key points that I've written up here from that game. First thing first, reactor was a few seconds late. The moment that Reaper pops, you got to start that reactor.
Okay.
When your reactor finished, there was 5 seconds before you started Marines, because you were microing your Reaper. You got to start those Marines a second the reactor pops. Otherwise, things like these adepts can cause you troubles. That being said, you pulled SCVs to the low ground, but your command center actually finished, so there was no need to pull those SCVs down to fight the adept, right? Were they just a transfer? I don't think so.
I think they were
a
transfer.
They were a transfer? Okay. I guess because you're only on one gas. Yeah.
I had 19, I think, workers in my main, so I wanted to move some down. I may have moved too many down, but originally I think it was a transfer, and then when they were on the way, the adept was coming up, so they just kind of, happy accident ended up in the right place to help defend with the Marines, I think.
Cool. Most Protoss players fuck up their second pylon or their Cybercore timing a little bit. You scouted Nexus before Cybercore, and you still went hunting for the probe with your Reaper. I would much rather you just go straight to their base and get in, scout the tech structure that goes down, and kill a probe or two, but most importantly, keep that adept or stalker back at their side for a bit longer.
Okay.
And just send an extra SCV down to your natural. Oh, Reaper's left the base. Let's send an SCV down to our natural to mine minerals and chill there. And, or our scouting SCV arrives back at home around that time anyway, I think. So we can just, with the scouting SCV, be like, cool, you can go, mine minerals at the natural. And if the probe comes in, he'll fight the probe and defend the SCV there that's building the CC. You'll find if a player, there's a lot of players who let you get 2-3 probe kills on these small to medium sized maps like Kairos Junction. So really, really nice to go for that. But it also, as I said, better chance of scouting the tech early, better chance of keeping the adept home. So I think that's something which is just a small adjustment. Definitely a bit skill intensive, getting the Reaper straight in the base at the start. But I think it's a good way to play and to punish the Protoss players.
Okay.
Gas timing was wrong this game in terms of spending, is what I mean by that. I'm going to write spending. So you went stim shields then +1. It's got to be stim +1 then shields. I think that was just a one-off mistake, or maybe I'm not sure because you're very new to the build, so I'm not sure. Make sure you get it in order, because your +1 wasn't done lining up with the others. It finished way later.
Okay. That's good to know. I don't think I paid attention to what I was getting first there. It was more just making sure I allocated the gas to the right things. I think that's emphasized in your build order on the page.
Cool. Yeah. Just make sure it's in the right order, and you'll have that juicy, bam, all 3 upgrades finish at the exact same moment, and it's just got that lovely synergy. You would have won the game if you didn't pull your Marines back for the blink in the base. If you just committed to his natural, I think you would have won the game there. Yeah. So that's something, obviously. Oh shit, Stalker's in, you pulled your army back. You delayed your stim timing by a solid minute there.
Oh yeah. When he came into my main, I do that, I think, a lot. That's when I say I struggle with blink stalkers. A lot of the times I'll move out on the map, and maybe I miss the observer, and he sees me move out, and then 10 stalkers appear in my main. I'm like, oh, and then I just turn around, and then he recalled, which just delayed everything by probably a minute, right, or 30 seconds at least.
A long time, yeah. And you want to always go straight to the natural, because that's the juiciest target where all the probes are.
Mm-hmm.
So if you catch them grossly unprepared, you can get the real game-ending damage. Or sometimes you get someone being really greedy. You go in, you kill his third in a pylon. You go, yeah, awesome, let's go home. He's been so greedy, he's still ahead. He just rebuilds the Nexus, and he's already got double Robo Colossus on the way or something stupid like that, So going for the natural is the much harder skill check, where if someone's being greedy, you kill them. You actually will kill all the probes. Even if you're ignoring the third nexus, killing the probes on the natural is far more important of a target.
Okay.
And hit points for value. Workers are always the best thing to kill in any game, right? They're just so fragile, so expensive. So if we'd committed with that, that would have been good. We also would have dealt with the stalkers easier if we'd swapped into marauder production. Once your factory's down, you swap into marauder production because you're not gas starved anymore at that point. Your second and third gas is starting to mine.
Okay.
And you've already got all your upgrades going. So you swap into marauder production, deals with stalkers better, adds more oomph, and you just pull SCVs as well as whatever's rallying out of your buildings to help defend any blinkins to your main or anything like that. Overall, pretty good stuff. Obviously, it's just going to take more practice, more experience. But I think already you're looking like you're starting to get a little bit better with it, and with time you'll get better and better. So you've got these two very clear stages you're working on: stim timing, the big follow-up timing. I want most of your games to end with those, or at least be heavily decided by them. So don't be afraid to overcommit. Sometimes you'll overcommit into a bad position. Just use it as a learning experience, and you should be improving really fast.
Yeah. Even like you said, you just mentioning again to not click that button above the minimap. There's probably 3 or 4 times in that game where I wanted to hit that button, and then instead I just kind of looked around and grabbed the units manually, which may have taken longer, but just trying to do things the right way, right? Not the easy way.
Discipline, exactly. That's it, man. I mean, that's it. And as I said, that's got to count as a win, right? You've got to make it so that reprograms how you think about what winning is, right? And as soon as you do that, you're like, man, I feel so good. I lost 5 games in a row, but every single time I didn't click the F2 button once. I fought that urge and overcame it 10 times. And like the moment you can feel good about losing, you've just become an entirely different sort of StarCraft player. A smarter player who improving becomes second nature for you. So that's awesome, man. I think this was a really good first session. If you have any follow-up questions or anything in the notes doesn't make sense, just shoot me a message. Likewise, if you want to set up another session in the near future. So I think for now, just to summarize really quickly, sorry, I accidentally closed your document there. Obviously, working on the build order and being decisive with it is going to be very nice early on. And then as you get lots of games under your belt, you can start to do more and more of, I'm going to be a little bit careful. I'm going to back out of this and that sort of thing. I'm going to, okay, he's got this specific build order is a 5-minute charge load all in. I'm not going to move out with my timing. I scouted that with my Reaper. I'm going to finish the wall off on my natural and put 10 Marines in my main to snipe the prism, and I'm going to build a bunker and have an adaptation. You'll learn all these reactions with experience, but I think for now it's the 2-part: learning a TVP build, getting used to control groups, fighting the F2 habit, and that's more than enough to be working on for now. So good stuff, man.
Yeah, I look forward to setting up the next session with you. I'll obviously send you messages about that and work on this for now. What do you think would be a good, I don't want to set up right now, but what do you think would be a good space and time to work on all of these things, and then maybe start on another matchup or another build or whatever is next?
Usually about a week, sometimes longer. It really depends for you. Some people are like, look, it's coaching is not cheap, and maybe they're busy on holiday. So like, I want 3 weeks before, so I totally get this down. Other people are like, well, we can focus on a completely different matchup, and we can do it a few days later. So, and because I can obviously practice 2 different matchups at the same time on the ladder. So it's different for each person. I normally want at least 3 or 4 days between a session, just so you can really let that one absorb, because otherwise it is easy to forget things. Most people leave about a week or so between sessions, but practice for a day or 2, see how the information settles in. Make sure you go back to the document and you read through those notes tomorrow. Don't just read them today and then never look at it again, okay? That'll really help it sink in. And then after a couple of days of practice, I think you'll have a good feel for how you're progressing and when you want to set up the next one. So just shoot us a message in a couple of days and we can figure it out.
Perfect. That sounds great.
Awesome, man. All right, well, have a great night, and enjoy your weekend, mate.
You as well. Take care. Thanks again.
Good night, mate.
Cheers.